The diplomatic mission lasted exactly 17 minutes before the collector representatives, massive insectoid creatures with dozens of compound eyes and chitinous armor, attacked the station. If not for Elena's insistence on armed escorts and emergency extraction protocols, none of the coalition representatives would have survived. As their shuttle raced back to the main fleet, Ambassador Talith's skin had gone almost colorless with shock. They didn't even respond to our communication attempts. They just started killing. That's what happens when you try to reason with creatures that see you as nothing but resources, Elena replied, checking the tactical display. And the worst part is, this was just the beginning. She was right. Within days, the collectors launched simultaneous attacks on 3 Nishali colonial worlds. The coalition's defensive fleet was overwhelmed, their tactics predictable and ineffective against the swarming collector vessels. Admiral Santiago deployed the first human battle group to support the defense of Nishali Prime, the species' homeworld. The battle that followed became known as the Bloody Dawn. Human ships, retrofitted with Nishali technology, but following Earth combat doctrines, managed to destroy several collector vessels before being forced to retreat. In the aftermath, Elena stood in the war room aboard the coalition flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the devastation. 8 human ships lost, 3,000 lives. And for what? The collectors had simply regrouped and continued their advance. Our standard tactics aren't working, Elena reported to the Joint Command. The collectors adapt too quickly. By the third engagement, they were anticipating our maneuvers before we executed them. Chief Science Officer Maya Okafor stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor visibly shaken. I've analyzed the data from the captured collector drone ship. Their neural network is unlike anything we've encountered. They literally learn collectively. Every drone that survives an encounter uploads tactical data to the hive mind. Then how do we defeat them? Asked General Voss, the grizzled veteran commanding Earth's expeditionary force. Maya hesitated before answering. Based on our current approach, we don't. The room fell silent. The Nishali representative's skin had turned a deep, mournful purple. There is worse news, Maya continued. The collectors have accelerated their timetable. Based on intercepted communications, Earth has been designated a priority target. We estimate they'll reach our solar system within 18 months. Admiral Santiago's face hardened into a mask of determination. Then we need to change our approach. Captain Rice, what do you suggest? Elena took a deep breath. Everything in her training, everything in human military history, pointed toward one conclusion. The Nishali fight defensively. They try to hold positions, protect worlds. It's not working. The collectors just keep coming. She paused, looking at the alien representatives. Humanity has a different history. When faced with extinction, we don't just defend. We attack. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Ambassador Talith, skin flickering with concern. Total war, Elena answered firmly. We commit everything. We don't just fight the collectors where they attack. We hunt them down across the galaxy. We target their supply lines, their outposts, their breeding worlds. We don't stop until the threat is eliminated. This is excessive, protested Talith, 4 arms gesturing in distress. The resources required. Earth has already begun full war production, interrupted General Voss. Every factory, every shipyard is being converted. Maya displayed her latest research. We've identified weaknesses in collector biology. They're vulnerable to specific bioweapons that won't affect Nishali or humans. Bioweapons, gasped one of the Nishali representatives. This goes against all interstellar conventions. Conventions the collectors never signed, Elena pointed out. We're fighting for survival. Another Nishali, older than the others, his skin a weathered gray, spoke for the first time. Perhaps the humans speak truth. We have lost 17 worlds following our traditional methods. The call from the stars. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the UES Intrepid, watching as Earth grew smaller behind them. Humanity's most advanced warship was heading toward the outer reaches of the solar system, where something impossible awaited them. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Lieutenant Dawson reported, his usually stoic face betraying a hint of nervousness. "Take us in slowly," Alina ordered, returning to the bridge. "All sensors at maximum. If this is some kind of trap, I want to know before we're in the middle of it." 3 days earlier, a signal had reached Earth's deep space monitoring stations, not the random noise of cosmic radiation or the predictable patterns of pulsars. This was a message, clearly artificial and clearly directed at Earth. Humanity had been searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence for over a century. Now, it seemed, they had found us first. The bridge fell silent as the massive alien vessel came into view. It dwarfed the Intrepid, its smooth silver hull reflecting the distant sun in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as if the ship itself was trying to communicate. "Opening transmission channels," Communications Officer Park announced, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're responding to our greeting." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Tall and slender, with iridescent blue skin that seemed to ripple with patterns of light, 4 elongated arms, and large, expressive eyes that dominated a face with no visible mouth. "People of Earth," the translation software rendered in a neutral voice, "I am Ambassador Talith of the Nishali Concordance. We come seeking your help in a time of great need." That first meeting led to a series of increasingly disturbing revelations. The Nishali were part of a coalition of spacefaring species that had enjoyed thousands of years of peaceful expansion and trade, until 50 Earth years ago, when the first collector ships appeared. In the briefing room of the Intrepid, Talith's holographic representation displayed images that made Alina's blood run cold. Entire planets stripped of resources, populations harvested for biological material, civilizations wiped out in a matter of days. "They operate as a collective consciousness," Talith explained, "each individual connected to the whole. They learn, they adapt, and they consume everything in their path." Admiral Santiago, Earth's most decorated military officer, leaned forward. "With respect, Ambassador, your technology is clearly centuries beyond ours. Why come to us for help?" Talith's skin rippled with patterns that the cultural liaison interpreted as sadness. "The Nishali and our allies are creators, builders, explorers. We have not fought wars in thousands of years. We lack the capacity for the kind of conflict the collectors have brought to our worlds." "And what makes you think we'd be any better at fighting them?" Alina asked. Talith's large eyes fixed on her. "We have observed your species for over a century, Captain. Your history is unlike any in our coalition. You have faced extinction multiple times, from nature, from yourselves. And each time, you not only survived but emerged stronger." The ambassador's skin shifted to a deeper blue. "Your kind possesses something we have lost over millennia of peace, the will and the capacity to fight against impossible odds. In your own historical archives, your leaders often speak of your species' indomitable spirit." Alina exchanged glances with Admiral Santiago. They had expected first contact to open doorways to new knowledge, new frontiers of exploration. Instead, it had brought humanity face to face with a war they hadn't asked for. The United Earth Security Council debated for 48 hours straight. Some argued for isolation. Earth had its own problems to solve before taking on an interstellar war. Others saw opportunity in the advanced technology the Nishali offered in exchange for military assistance. A few simply believed it was humanity's moral obligation to help. In the end, the deciding factor came from the Nishali's grim revelation. The collectors had already detected Earth's transmissions. They already knew we existed. It wasn't a question of whether they would come, but when. 3 months later, Alina found herself commanding a joint human-Nishali mission to a neutral diplomatic station where representatives of the coalition would attempt negotiation with the collectors. The Nishali insisted on trying peaceful resolution one final time. "They won't negotiate. Elena told Ambassador Talith as they approached the station. Predators don't negotiate with prey. We must try, Talith insisted, skin flashing patterns of determination. Violence must always be the last resort. As the coalition leadership debated, humanity prepared for war like never before. Industries were converted to military production. New ships were built, combining Nishali technology with human design. Weapons testing facilities worked around the clock. Admiral Santiago addressed the United Earth Defense Force from the deck of the new flagship UES Vengeance. For the first time in our history, humanity faces an enemy that will not negotiate, will not show mercy, and will not stop. This is not a war for territory or resources or pride. This is a war for the right to exist. Elena watched the preparations from her new command, the UES Firebrand. She knew there would be no turning back. The Nishali had begged for help, but they never imagined what form that help would take. Humanity's answer was total war. Humanity unleashed. Major Thomas Keller moved silently through the darkness of the Collector outpost. 6 months of intensive training had prepared him and his strike team for this moment. They wore specially designed stealth suits that masked their heat signatures and bioelectric fields from Collector detection systems. Eagle actual to all points. Status check. Keller whispered into his secure comm. Alpha in position. Charges ready, came Lieutenant Alvarez's response. Beta in position, reported Surgeon Chen. Gamma ready, confirmed Lieutenant Rodriguez. Keller checked his tactical display. All 12 team members were in position around the Collector command node. The mission was simple but dangerous. Plant specially designed neural disruptors that would confuse the hive mind temporarily, allowing the main fleet to strike. Execute in 3, 2, 1, mark, Keller ordered. Across the station, 12 devices activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate. The Collectors, tall, multi-limbed insectoid creatures, began moving erratically. Some froze in place. Others ran in circles, their coordinated hive mind thrown into disarray. Phase 2, Keller commanded. His team moved swiftly, eliminating any Collectors that came near them with targeted shots from their specialized weapons. Above the outpost, Captain Elena Reyes watched from the bridge of the UES Firebrand. Beside her stood Sentinel Lorith, a Nishali military advisor. His blue skin showing patches of what Elena had learned was the Nishali equivalent of anxious concern. Your soldiers move with impressive precision, Lorith observed. How long before the Collectors adapt to your disruptors? We don't need long, Elena replied. She turned to her communications officer. Signal the fleet. Begin the attack. 20 human warships dropped out of FTL travel and opened fire on the outpost. Unlike previous engagements, they didn't target the obvious defense systems. Instead, they hit specific points identified by Dr. Okoffer's research team. Power nodes, communication relays, and the biological systems that the Collectors use to coordinate their hive mind. Inside the station, Keller's team fought their way to the central control chamber. The intelligence gathered from captured Collector drones had proven accurate. This outpost contained a node queen, a larger Collector that helped coordinate the hive's activities in this sector. Target located, Keller reported as they breached the chamber. The node queen was enormous, nearly 3 times the size of the worker Collectors. It thrashed wildly, confused by the disruptor signals. Deploying neural toxin, Keller reported. The specialized weapon fired not bullets but a concentrated dose of the nerve agent Dr. Okoffer had developed. It struck the node queen directly. The effect was immediate. The creature convulsed violently, then went still. Throughout the station, Collectors began to fall, their connection to the hive mind severed. Keller's team extracted quickly, returning to their shuttle as the human fleet continued its precise bombardment. Back on the Firebrand, Elena watched with grim satisfaction as the outpost's defenses collapsed. Target neutralized, reported her tactical officer. Minimal casualties on our side. Lorith stared at the tactical display in amazement. Your people accomplished in one attack what our forces couldn't achieve in multiple attempts. "This is just the beginning," Elena said. "We're not fighting to defend. We're fighting to win." When Keller's team returned to the ship, they'd brought valuable data captured from the outpost. Dr. Okafor began analyzing it immediately. "Captain, you need to see this," she said hours later, her face grave. The holographic display showed strange star charts and biological data. "The collectors aren't just randomly expanding," Dr. Okafor explained. "They're running from something." Elena studied the strange symbols. Running from what? "I don't know yet," Dr. Okafor admitted. "But whatever it is, it terrifies them enough to make them consume entire worlds to fuel their escape." News of the victory spread quickly through both human and Nishali fleets. For the first time, a collector outpost had been completely destroyed. The Nishali High Council requested an immediate meeting with Earth's leadership. First Speaker Nurath addressed Admiral Santiago directly, skin flashing patterns of distress. "We asked for your help, Admiral, but this level of aggression was not what we expected." "With all due respect," Santiago replied, "you asked us to fight a war. This is how humans fight when our survival is at stake." As the diplomatic discussions continued, Elena prepared the fleet for their next target. The first strike had been successful, but she knew the collectors would adapt. Next time would be harder. Humanity's total war had begun. Over the next 6 months, humanity transformed the conflict. Rather than trying to hold defensive positions around inhabited worlds, a strategy that had cost the Nishali 17 planets, human commanders implemented Operation Firestorm. Small, fast-strike teams hit collector supply lines, communication nodes, and breeding facilities. Larger battle groups targeted major collector installations with overwhelming force, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Special forces infiltrated collector ships and stations, planting neural toxins and gathering intelligence. The collectors fought back with increasing ferocity. They adapted to the neural disruptors, forcing Dr. Okafor and her team to constantly develop new variants. They began targeting civilian populations deliberately, trying to force the human Nishali alliance to spread their forces thin on defensive operations. After a particularly devastating attack on the Nishali colony of Meridian, the coalition leadership met again in emergency session. 6 million dead, reported Ambassador Talith, his skin a deep morning blue. The collectors bypassed our defensive fleet entirely. They've changed their tactics. They're targeting civilians deliberately now. They're trying to force us to pull back, Elena explained. To shift to a defensive posture, which is exactly what we must do, insisted First Speaker Nurath. We cannot abandon our people. Admiral Santiago exchanged a glance with Elena before responding. If we spread ourselves thin trying to defend every world, we'll lose this war. The collectors will pick us apart piece by piece. Then what do you suggest? Asked Nurath, skin flashing angry red patterns. General Voss stepped forward, displaying a new tactical plan. We accelerate our offensive operations, hit them harder, faster, in more places simultaneously. Force them to defend their critical infrastructure instead of attacking ours. But our worlds, began Talith, will be temporarily vulnerable, finished Elena. But if we succeed, they'll be permanently safe. It was Sentinel Lorith who finally broke the impasse. In 10,000 years of Nishali history, we have never faced extinction before. Perhaps it is time we learn from those who have faced it many times and survived. The coalition adopted the human strategy, though many Nishali leaders did so reluctantly. Operation Firestorm expanded, with joint human Nishali strike teams hitting collector targets across 3 sectors simultaneously. 3 months later, Dr. Okafor made a breakthrough while analyzing data from multiple collector high ships. They have a central coordination hub, she reported to the War Council, a primary node queen that connects the entire collective. She displayed the location on the galactic map, deep in collector-controlled space, surrounded by layers of defenses. If we can neutralize this hub, Elena suggested, we could disrupt their entire neural network. The casualties would be extreme, warned General Voss. We'd lose at least half the fleet just getting there. And if we don't? Asked Admiral Santiago. The room fell silent. The assault on the Collector Hub became the largest military operation in human history. 2,000 ships from Earth, and the Coalition gathered at the edge of Collector space. Every vessel that could be spared from defense and supply duties. Alina stood on the bridge of the Firebrand, now bearing the scars of dozens of battles. Beside her, Sentinel Lorith had become a trusted advisor and friend. "Are you afraid?" he asked, his skin showing concerned patterns. "Always," Alina admitted. "Fear keeps you sharp. It's when you stop being afraid that you make mistakes." The fleet jumped into Collector space, immediately meeting fierce resistance. The battle was brutal, with ships on both sides falling by the hundreds. For every defense line they breached, another appeared, as if the Collectors had anticipated their strategy. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Santiago received devastating news. "They've launched a counterattack on Earth. 3 Hive ships just entered the solar system." For a moment, doubt flickered across his face. Then his jaw set in determination. "We proceed as planned. Earth's defenses will hold." As the main fleet engaged the Collector Armada, Alina led a smaller strike force toward the hub itself, a massive organic structure that pulsed with unnatural energy. Keller's team, now veterans of countless infiltration missions, prepared for their final deployment. "This is different from the outposts," Alina warned them. "The primary node queen will have defenses we haven't encountered before." "We'll adapt," Keller replied simply. "That's what humans do." The strike team launched, their approach masked by the chaos of the main battle. As they infiltrated the hub, they encountered new Collector variants, larger, more intelligent, specialized for internal defense. "They're learning from us," Keller reported as his team fought their way deeper into the structure, using our own tactics. At the heart of the hub, they found what they were looking for, and what they feared. The primary node queen was an enormous entity, connected to the structure itself by countless neural tendrils. Around it moved dozens of specialized Guardian Collectors. "We can't get close enough to deploy the toxin directly," reported Lieutenant Alvarez. Alina's voice came through their comms. "Plan B, Major. The whole strike force is committed now." Keller nodded grimly. "Understood, Captain. It's been an honor." The strike team deployed their final weapon. Not neural toxins, but a compact antimatter device designed specifically for this mission. As they fought their way back toward their extraction point, Keller knew many wouldn't make it. Above the hub, Alina ordered the Firebrand to move into position. "All ships, prepare to jump on my mark." "Strike team, status." "Device armed," came Keller's strained voice. 60 seconds to detonation." We're not going to make the extraction point, Captain." Alina closed her eyes briefly. "Understood, Major. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." When the antimatter device detonated, it created a chain reaction throughout the neural network of the hub. The primary node queen's death scream echoed across the hive mind, disrupting Collector ships and drones across the galaxy. As the Coalition fleet jumped to safety, the hub collapsed in on itself, taking with it the central intelligence that had guided the Collector expansion for decades. In the aftermath, the scattered Collector forces, now operating on primitive instinct rather than coordinated intelligence, were systematically eliminated by Coalition forces. Without the central hub to process and distribute tactical data, they could no longer adapt to new threats or coordinate complex operations. 3 months after the Battle of the Hub, Alina stood with Admiral Santiago on the observation deck of Earth's orbital defense platform. Below them, the planet continued its recovery from the Collector attack. "The final reports from Coalition space confirm it," Santiago said. "The remaining Collector forces have been neutralized or contained." "And the cost?" Alina asked quietly. Santiago's face was grave. 8 Earth colonies heavily damaged. 4 million human casualties. The Nishali lost 11 worlds and nearly 30 million citizens. Alina looked out at the stars. Was it worth it? "Ask me in a generation," Santiago replied, "when our children grow up without fear of extinction." A month later, Elena returned to Nishali Prime for the formal declaration of victory. The coalition leadership had gathered to sign a new interstellar accord, one that would establish permanent cooperation between their species. First Speaker Narath, whose skin now showed patterns of both sorrow and hope, addressed the assembly. "We asked humanity for help, never imagining the form that help would take. We begged for assistance, and their answer was total war." The room was silent as Narath's skin shifted to a pattern of deep respect. "And for that, we now exist. For that, our children will live to see another millennium. We have learned that peace is precious, but survival sometimes demands terrible resolve." As Elena listened, she thought of Major Keller and his team, of all those who had given their lives in the conflict. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. They had revealed themselves as not just explorers or diplomats, but warriors when necessary, a species that, when pushed to the edge of extinction, would fight with unmatched ferocity to survive. The Nishali had begged for help. Humanity had answered with total war. And the stars themselves now knew. Never underestimate the determination of the human spirit when everything is at stake.